This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Good evening. The federal Liberals are wrapping up their three-day cabinet retreat in Halifax tonight.
Despite a year of bad polling and calls for a major reset from within their own party, Justin Trudeau and his ministers appear to be holding the line on their current strategy. Ashley Burke has the details.
Down in the polls, the Prime Minister and his cabinet spent 3 days planning their agenda for the year ahead as they try to make a comeback.
There are things that need to be different. We need to continue to work to bring down the cost of living, to make sure that there are affordable homes for Canadians.
They have a deal with the NDP for support that could give them a year to try and turn their political troubles around before the next election.
I'm fairly confident that that agreement is a good agreement, it's a strong agreement, and we'll get to the end of June.
But there's been no clear sign of a major reset or desire to pivot, and no suggestions Justin Trudeau must go.
All of us here have tremendous confidence in the Prime Minister.
Trudeau and his cabinet did make some big moves on some difficult issues, looking to reduce immigration numbers and slapping tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. But all signs coming out of this cabinet retreat are that they're staying the course.
Canadians understand, the question on the ballot and in the future ballot, in which society do you want to live in? And what is the vote you're going to cast, not only is going to do for you, but for the country.
They're also working on Canada's relationship with the U.S.
Our American friends understand, we're moving from being nice to being strategic.
But Canada's former ambassador to the U.S. says in a phase of American protectionism, Canada needs to take more risks to help the White House solve its problems if it wants anything in return.
I think we've got to talk to the Americans about what it is that we can do to take stuff off their plate rather than simply piling more demands.
There are questions around if the party can turn its political fortunes around with this current strategy. The next big test is a by-election in Montreal next month in a riding the Liberals currently hold. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Halifax.
Last night, we told you that the Department of Natural Resources was looking into a possible bear attack near a Halifax area trail. But now the department says after an investigation, it wasn't an attack from a bear or any other kind of wildlife after all. Staff were on site and had closed part of the Shearwater Flyer Trail yesterday. A statement from the department today says they worked with local police that had no confirming evidence and was found at the scene. The RCMP said in an email to CBC that they do not believe there was any criminal involvement in the incident. But they would not say how the man received his injuries, which were not life-threatening. The bear traps put up yesterday were being removed this afternoon.
A new report looking back on last year's Halifax area wildfire sheds light on how quickly it overwhelmed city firefighters. Experts say wildfires encroaching on cities will be a more common occurrence with climate change, and firefighters across the country may not be prepared. Nicola Sagan reports.
The fire in May 2023 erupted on a sunny Sunday afternoon. Walls of smoke towering over neighborhoods in Halifax's suburbs as flames edged the roads and thousands scurried to get out. Firefighters went in.
The level of destruction, the speed that the fire was moving, the amount of people trying to be evacuated were all extreme compared to what we've dealt with in the past.
It was one of the largest wildfires ever recorded in the Halifax area. 151 homes were destroyed across 9 square kilometers.
We remember very well the suffering caused by this event.
A new report from Halifax's fire department spells out the challenge to urban firefighters used to fighting fires in homes and other structures. Those first responders didn't have the proper training, experience, or equipment and were quickly overwhelmed. Experts say to expect more of that across the country as climate change and urban sprawl bring wildfires to urban areas more often.
We're calling it the intersection of hazards, right? Things are just expanding beyond our normal borders of where municipalities used to be involved.
Though specialized wildfire teams usually take the lead, municipal firefighters must also respond, as in Jasper, Alberta just last month, and in the BC community of Lytton and throughout the Shuswap region in the past 3 years.
We're seeing more and more communities impacted. There's more development on the landscape, but there's also more fire.
Halifax Fire's report gave 56 recommendations, including expanded training, new equipment, and an updated wildfire response strategy.
Climate change disasters are becoming more frequent. We're not confident that we're prepared.
The firefighters that head into the flames saying there's no time to waste. Nicola Sagan, CBC News, Halifax.
Halifax Regional Fire and Emergency is also working to assess every community in the municipality for its risk of wildfire. But as the CBC's Ali Thompson reports, it's not just fire officials involved in the effort. Community members are playing a fundamental role.
If a wildfire broke out in your community, would you be ready? Would you know where to go? Did you take steps ahead of time to protect your property? Wildfire experts want you and your neighbors to have the answers to these questions. As climate change increases the risk of wildfires countrywide and to urban areas, Halifax Fire is conducting risk assessments for all 200 communities in HRM. Should yours be next?
When Paul Mead moved into his house on Sheepshead Island 3 years ago, he could barely spot it from the road through the property's dense bands of trees. He started to cut it back for aesthetic reasons. But after a wildfire broke out in the nearby community of Upper Tantallon in May 2023, Mead soon realized his proactive tree clearing had another unintended bonus: fire prevention. He felt some relief that fire wasn't on his own doorstep that May, until another fire was.
We thought we were okay until a fire broke out on the island. And if it hadn't have been for the diversion of a air crew to come over here before the fire trucks got here and scoop water out of the ocean and put the fire out, the whole island could have gone up. Now that was a wake-up call, serious wake-up call.
Mead and the 18 other households on the island realized they were vulnerable and wanted to do something about it. They reached out to Cara McCurdy, Halifax Fire's wildfire mitigation manager, for help. McCurdy is assessing every community in Halifax Regional Municipality for its risk of wildfire and other hazards like floods, educating residents, and identifying related issues in the wider community. It's an enormous task, one she's carrying out with the help of city planners, environmental officials, and an expert at Dalhousie University. But there's another very important partner in this initiative: residents.
The thing is getting the buy-in from the community members. Nova Scotia is 75% privately owned. Halifax municipality in general is quite forested, in comparison to a lot of others. So we have that urban interface, those homes right up against the woods to worry about. So getting those folks involved in wildfire mitigation is key. And it's not something that's been on people's radar up until last year.
Risk assessments often start by considering the proximity of forests and wooded areas to homes. McCurdy also looks at things like the types of wood in the forest, whether there are water sources available, and whether there's emergency egress. As issues are discovered, changes are made.
When the fire broke out on Sheepshead Island, resources were stretched thin across the province, and Mead realized he and his neighbors had no plan for escape. Fire trucks had blocked the narrow causeway.
Nobody could get off the island, so that was a concern. So a few of the people gathered around and we were taken out by boat.
Now the residents have come up with an evacuation plan that includes muster points on the island. They also carried out a community cleanup event to help reduce the amount of fire fuel, which they plan to do yearly.
Fire and wind is just a bad combination. So what we want to do is thin out the trees so that at least you may not stop a fire, but you can slow it down. And if you can slow it down, you might save yourself, right?
Just up the road here from Sheepshead Island is a place called Mason's Point. It's a peninsula, so like Sheepshead, there's only one way in and out. Cynthia Weatherston lives there, and she also felt vulnerable after the wildfires last year. So she decided to do something about it.
This is what Cynthia Weatherston has been up to lately. Last year, she met with McCurdy to learn about Fire Smart, a national program that teaches residents and communities about how to protect themselves against wildfires. She brought that information back to her book club, a group of roughly 25 women that meet monthly.
They immediately said, we have to do this. We have to share this information with our neighborhood. We need to do it.
From that, a new society was born. They incorporated as a nonprofit in order to access grants and to add a layer of legitimacy. Weatherston says more than 80 people attended the Fire Safe Society of Mason Point's launch meeting in May. Since then, she started making weekly videos to teach her neighbors about fire prevention.
Everything a homeowner does improves things from where they are now, no matter how small. So just start doing something. And what you do on your own property helps your neighbor, which in turn will help the whole neighborhood. So start small, do those things you feel comfortable with, and just grow it out from there.
McCurdy has completed 24 risk assessments to date and has many more in the works. That includes Indigenous and African Nova Scotian communities, as part of the fire service's efforts to ensure those diverse communities are prioritized. But McCurdy is also taking on communities who reach out to her directly.
I'm excited when people reach out to me because they've already got that vested interest in doing the work, right? They care about their community. They want to get the work done in their community. That's not saying that the ones that haven't reached out aren't interested. I just don't think that they know where to start. And the big thing is to get a hold of myself and I can kind of start the process and explain to them how they can go about it.
Ali Thompson, CBC News, Sheepshead Island and Masons Point.
Jay Scotland is back again tonight for Ryan Snoddon, and this turned out to be a pretty nice day, certainly in the Halifax area for sure.
Yeah, things turned around just as you said they would yesterday.
Yeah, it was warm. It was enough humidity that it still felt very summer-like, but not too much to keep you indoors beside the AC unit. I don't want to say this was a Goldilocks forecast, but not bad, although we do have a bit of a change coming in the form of a cold front that'll be digging in from our northwest tomorrow. So temperature-wise, I mean, coastal areas were considerably cooler today, but inland areas, temperatures were up into the 20s, humidex values, high 20s to just over 30. It's enough humidity, not too much, but we will watch for relatively quiet conditions this evening and through the overnight hours to kind of make way for maybe some fog patches to set up. Certainly coastal areas late this evening, moving inland a little bit through the overnight hours tonight. As we edge into tomorrow morning, you can see that fog and drizzle just around the South Shore region there through the early morning hours. There's your cold front that will be moving in, though, and you can see by early afternoon digging into more western areas and northern areas, and then late afternoon into the evening, that front continues to dig south and east, and the rain will fall heavily, but it's not going to last that long. So rainfall totals, most areas near 5 to 15 millimeters of rain. Some local amounts over 20 millimeters will be possible. We'll see a pretty strong southwest wind, 20 to gusting 30 for coastal areas, even over 40 kilometers per hour ahead of the cold front. And then as we get into your Wednesday night, watch for cooler north to northwesterly winds that will be dropping your temperatures across the province into Thursday, although at least the sky will be clearing. It's the opposite of a clearing trend, though, over the next 24 hours. We'll see some clouds building overnight into your Wednesday morning. Some fog patches will be possible. And then we'll see the wet weather arriving afternoon through early evening as that front moves in. Strong southwest wind becoming north to northwest late in the day. So still fairly warm ahead of the cold front, but going to be a bit of a change for Thursday. Cool and comfortable, at least.
Refreshing, right?
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Jay.
You got it.
Some people living rough in the Annapolis Valley can soon start moving into the new shelter village in Kentville. It's one of several new transitional housing sites for people experiencing homelessness. The space will have 20 furnished units, each with heat and air conditioning. 3 of them will be wheelchair accessible. There are also washrooms and laundry facilities with 3 meals served each day. Staff from local nonprofit groups, Open Arms, will be on site 24/7 to support people living there. The first few residents will start moving in Thursday.
We feel that the best approach is to have a staggered intake to help individuals stabilize on a smaller basis, so that 5 individuals will come initially, and we'll likely be including 5 additional individuals, perhaps each subsequent week until we're full.
The site in Kentville is part of a $7.5 million investment from the province, which bought 200 of these shelters from U.S. company Pallet. One shelter village is already up and running in Lower Sackville. 2 more in Sydney and Dartmouth are slated to open in the next few weeks.
Hundreds of Nova Scotians who benefit from a rent supplement program are receiving payments that are more than their actual rent. Changes are being made to the joint provincial and federal program to try and make it more fair. But as Gareth Hampshire reports, critics are calling for even more action.
The program in question provides eligible Nova Scotians with a monthly subsidy to help pay their rent in an increasingly high-priced market. The formula was based on average market rents in areas and not the actual rent people are paying. As a result, about 860 clients have been receiving payments that are more than their actual rent.
So if you're considerably less than average market rent, and we're basing a calculation on average market rent, you could receive more. So I think it's been going on since the beginning.
The average overpayment is about $145 a month. The calculations are now changing so that benefits will match the rent people are paying.
We're just looking at trying to enhance the fairness in the program and changing the formula slightly. And we can see that if we do so, we can add more people into the rent supplement program.
The income threshold for the program's also being adjusted. The Canada-Nova Scotia Targeted Housing Benefit used to help low-income Nova Scotians who spent 30% or more of their household income on rent. That figure jumped to 50% last year and is now being adjusted to 40%. Making housing more affordable is a major issue throughout the province. Opposition critics are calling for much more action to help people who are struggling.
The housing situation in Nova Scotia is getting worse. Rents are going up by 8, 9, 10% a year. And those are all reasons to restore a program back to the original standard rather than make it more difficult for people to qualify.
The actions to date on housing affordability have been so insufficient from this government. We need so much more. The evidence is in front of us everywhere we go here in HRM and across the province. You know, in every community in this province is struggling with housing insecurity. We need affordable housing. Until we have that affordable housing supply, until we prioritize that, we have these stopgaps.
The minister insists the province is making vast investments in housing and believes the rent supplement program is significant, benefiting more than 8,000 households, a big increase in a couple of years. Gareth Hampshire, CBC News, Halifax.
Last night, we told you about a new midwifery service coming to Cape Breton this fall. Some say that program paves the way for more midwifery care across the province. Taryn Grant explains.
Kaylin Moore is one of about 24 midwives with a license to practice in Nova Scotia. Midwives are specialists in healthcare during pregnancy, delivery, and postpartum.
The demand is very high, particularly there are long wait lists in Halifax and in the regions where there are no midwifery services.
Right now in Nova Scotia, midwives practice only out of Halifax, Antigonish, and on the South Shore. But many people would like to see that expand, including this midwife, who lives in Inverness.
There isn't the capacity to care for the people in their own community, so we're seeing a lot of travel to bigger centers, and what we're hoping to do is bring a little bit more of that home.
She and one other midwife will start practicing in Inverness this fall. This project is the first example of an alternative type of midwifery outside of Nova Scotia's 3 primary clinics. The council that regulates midwives says others are interested in setting up similar programs, and the one in Inverness shows that it's possible. Now, under these alternative practice arrangements, midwives cannot attend deliveries, but there are a lot of other things that they can do.
And there are midwives that may want to provide, just sexual reproductive health, just lactation consultant care, just prenatal care, The sky's the limit, really, if we can get the funding.
Getting funding is a big obstacle. The Inverness midwives got 3 years of funding through a pilot project by Doctors Nova Scotia. It would be easier to set up these practices if midwives could bill directly to the province, like they do in some other parts of the country. The Department of Health and Wellness told CBC News it's aware of this, and it's considering the best approach for Nova Scotia. This is all in the context of another big change on the horizon for midwives. Current provincial laws limit midwifery care from the start of pregnancy up to 6 weeks after a baby is born. But midwives are trained to provide sexual and reproductive health care throughout life. The province is planning to adopt new regulations for midwives by 2026, and it's expected that it will allow midwives to practice to their full scope. That could mean even more people lining up for midwifery care, but it could also mean more midwives wanting to practice in Nova Scotia. Taryn Grant, CBC News, Halifax.
A former firefighter in Cape Breton is calling on the community for help to save an antique fire truck. The truck helped fight fires and save lives during the 1930s in Glace Bay, but it has seen better days. Kyle Moore has that story.
For more than 2 decades, this old fire truck has been abandoned. It has spent time in storage and out in the elements, but still it catches your eye, and it caught the attention of Brian Budden.
It's an antique, it's historic, it's very unique, and I think it's a worthwhile project.
The retired firefighter of more than 25 years wants to see the truck restored to its former glory. Nicknamed the Quad, the truck changed the way fires were fought in Glace Bay. It offered 4 different types of firefighting needs: ladders, water, hoses, and foam.
Basically replaced horse and buggy for hauling like gear around and stuff like that.
For years, the truck was the centerpiece of the Glace Bay Santa Claus Parade, seen here in 1991.
It's fairly good shape for what it's been through. It's been quite a few years in storage and left out at times to the elements. And I think with the proper funding and the people with some know-how and local businesses, I think we can accomplish this.
The truck was originally purchased for New York, but was too long for the narrow city streets, so it ended up here in Glace Bay. It hasn't been back in the community for more than 2 decades and was in danger of being scrapped.
When I saw that, I thought I'd jump on board right away. And
CBRM councillor Ken Tracy is on the municipality's Heritage Committee, and he's hoping to secure funding to help with the project.
You know, I think that back then in the day that this truck was part of Glace Bay and saved many homes, maybe lives and whatnot, to be involved, and then just to go by the wayside, it doesn't do it justice at all.
Budden says he's heard from people from all across the country and here at home wanting to help. He estimates it will cost around $150,000 to bring the truck back to life.
My end goal would be to see that truck in a I'll say a glass display, but not necessarily, maybe a garage with some nice glass doors, and open the doors from time to time to let people see it, and have it running for parades, and just to be proud of what we have. It's unique.
Unique and a part of history that Budden hopes will be shared with generations to come. Kyle Moore, CBC News, Glace Bay.
We're going to have to do a follow-up on that one.
Yep,
don't
definitely.
You think? All right, Nova Scotia Olympic medalist was met with cheering supports after returning home last night.
Yes, paddler Sloane McKenzie claimed bronze with her partner Katie Vincent of Mississauga in the women's canoe sprint C2 500-meter final in Paris. The 22-year-old walked through the doors at the Halifax airport to see about 12 clapping supporters. Mackenzie, who's from Windsor Junction, says her experience in Paris exceeded her expectations.
Katie and I have been training super hard for the past 3 years, and we didn't know what to expect really. A few years ago, we were a newer crew. We still are. We've only been training together about 2.5 years in the boat, but then we started doing pretty well the past 2 years in competition, so we just wanted to have a really good race and leave it out on the course and see what happens.
It's been quite a ride. Mackenzie made her debut in the Senior ICF World Championships in 2022. Along with their Olympic win, the pair also took home gold at the 2023 Pan Am Games last year.
Coming up, avoiding an outbreak. Polio vaccines arrive in Gaza, but distributing them is the next challenge.
And a rare but potentially deadly virus spread by mosquitoes has communities in the northeast U.S. on alert.
And a pretty busy night in Halifax Harbor. Beautiful night out there. Jay's up next with the weather forecast. We'll see you in a few. All right, for folks who need maybe a break from the warm summer weather, it's coming.
Little change in the air. Is that what I hear, Jay?
Yeah, Thursday. We'll call it a sneak preview of early fall. I can't believe we're talking about, we're close to September, close to back to school. It's the unofficial wrap to the summer season. Of course, the Labor Day weekend. We'll break down the weekend forecast in just a moment as well. Today, temperature-wise, most areas away from the water. It was nice. It was warm, above seasonal in many areas. Humidex was not too oppressive, but if you were able to get down to the water, it felt very comfortable today. Quiet conditions, lots of sunshine through the second half of the day as well. Much like yesterday and last night, we do have some fog possible late this evening that could start to work its way inland from coastal areas through the overnight hours. And most of the guidance is showing that fog generally most widespread for more southern parts of the province. But we could be looking at some low cloud and some fog to start the day into the HRM as well, up towards the hub into Truro. As we start the day tomorrow, I'm not expecting it to be this cloudy, but we will be seeing the clouds increasing through the morning hours as this cold front continues to work out of New Brunswick and PEI towards Nova Scotia. So for more northern and western areas, we will see that front arriving with wet weather, likely pretty early in the afternoon, and then late afternoon and evening hours for more southern and eastern areas as that front digs in. Ahead of the cold front, we're going to be looking at a fairly robust southwesterly wind that could be gusting 30, 40 or higher kilometers per hour, certainly on the higher end of that for coastal areas. Then that wind, after the rain moves through into your Wednesday evening, that wind will still be brisk from the north to northwest. Now, we have a ridge of high pressure that will be building in, so the sky will be clearing into Thursday. Fairly sunny conditions, but temperatures are going to be much cooler. Not a lick of humidity. It's going to really feel like early fall, despite the fact that we're not into September just yet. So consider Thursday a sneak preview, although a little bit breezy Thursday morning, maybe some passing clouds. Aside from the cooler temperatures, not a bad day at all. So let's break down what you can expect tonight. We'll see a partly cloudy sky with some clouds starting to build for southern and more northern parts of the province through the overnight hours tonight. So we'll say partly cloudy. Temperatures generally between 13 and 16 degrees for most areas. Do watch later this evening, overnight, and likely lingering into tomorrow for some fog patches to set up as well, at least until that wind picks up, starts to mix out that fog as that cold front approaches, and then we'll swap the fog patches with some building cloud cover, and then later that wet weather that will be arriving for most areas afternoon through evening. So late afternoon, evening for more southern and eastern areas, just a few hours earlier if you're a bit further north or to the west. And you can see those temperatures tomorrow still for most areas, low to mid 20s. I'm not really going to talk about humidex too much because as that cold front moves in, we'll start to see that humidity being flushed out late in the day, and that wind will be at least fairly brisk ahead of the cold front. But we will see slightly muggy conditions into the afternoon before that rain begins to fall, and that wind will be quite blustery. It's a fast-moving cold front, but the rain will feel heavy as it arrives, as we will be looking at more moderate pockets of rain with the cold front and some strong winds, but it's a fast mover, should start to clear out late in the evening, so into your Wednesday night. That sets us up for a much cooler Thursday. I think many areas will be struggling to hit 20 degrees for much of the province as we look to your Thursday afternoon. Friday, though, lots of sunshine for folks that maybe book the Friday off to make it an extra long weekend. Good on you. It's looking all right. Saturday, very sunny as well. Still keeping a chance of some showers moving in for your Sunday, and a better chance for more widespread rain on Monday before that sky begins to clear as we enter our first, I can't say full week because Labor Day on Monday, but entering our first week of September.
Yeah, we're getting there for sure. Okay, Jay, thanks so much.
Thank you. Coming up, it is a high-stakes summer camp fueled by wind and a lot of hard work. That story's up after the break.
Well, a group of students is crossing the Atlantic using traditional sailing techniques and limited technology.
Well, it's all part of a summer program designed to educate young sailors about life aboard a tall ship. Layla Baudouin has the story.
Birthday, dear Kyle. Happy birthday to you.
This group of young sailors have been living together since June, experiencing everything from birthdays to haircuts.
Singing. Yes, very popular.
Fitting for a group of teen sailors docked in Port au Choix.
There we are. That's our closest chart anyway, coming into Port au Choix here.
Captain Wilson Shorey is leading the crew on a training expedition aboard the St. Lawrence II. Each year, the Tall Ships Expeditions Canada program takes students from across the country out on the water to learn the ropes of sailing. But it's the first time the program has been in this province.
I love Newfoundland and Labrador. Yeah, ever since I first sailed out here, I loved it, and I was also very excited too. When the boat did decide to come here, I was like, oh, great extra bonus of coming in and working as the captain a bit, is get to sail these waters again. As long as he hasn't left yet.
Shorey was a part of the program as a teenager. He enjoyed it so much he came back to help others learn how to do something he loves.
I really enjoy sailing. There is a very nice feeling to it. I love being on the water.
Oh wait, I can't see anything.
But also particularly this program is really fun because of I find the youth involved are really great to work with. They're really keen.
Okay, so you're going to be aloft with John, loosing the squares in the MPS.
In our society, I don't think youth are given enough chances and enough opportunity to really prove what they can handle, and this is a unique organization that allows them to sort of rise and meet some pretty big challenges and responsibilities.
A lot of wind last night, so we had to make the sail smaller so it didn't blow us over.
My Inuktitut name is Khazatjo.
Going aloft, so I'm letting all those ropes out and then heading back down.
So when those fill, they are being pushed forward, and that energy and that force is being transferred into our masts, which also pushes the boat forward.
It's a great place to conquer your fear of heights. A lot of people come and they're nervous, and by the end of it, they're quite comfortable. That's the real joy of it, is you come on and you face something that you think, oh, I couldn't do that, or that's going to be too hard for me, or I wouldn't know how to do that. By the end of it, all of a sudden, you're accomplishing all of those things that you didn't think you could do when you started.
It's time to leave Port au Choix with a final destination of Corner Brook. The St. Lawrence II will pick up a second batch of trainees there for another expedition before sailing back to Kingston for the winter. For fishing communities like this one, wind on the water isn't normally a good thing. But for the crew of the St. Lawrence II, it's exactly what they'll use to direct their way back home. Layla Baudouin, CBC News, Port au Choix.
Coming up, how reusable bags have taught a whole generation to bag their own groceries.
Welcome back. Global health authorities are rushing to implement a polio vaccination plan for hundreds of thousands of children in Gaza.
Israel's bombing and displacement orders have decimated the territory's healthcare system, and there is a serious concern about a potential polio outbreak. Chris Brown reports.
Polio is stalking Gaza's children. An 11-month-old Abdulrahman Abu al-Jadyan is its first confirmed case. It's affected his limbs, said his mother, Naveen. He doesn't lift his arms properly, his neck is weak, and his legs don't hold up. He can't stand. She has 8 other children, and living in a crowded tent with such an incredibly contagious disease, she fears his siblings may get sick too. He used to crawl on sand, he walked in dirty places, and he drank water. We didn't know where it was coming from, said his mother. Polio was eradicated from Palestinian territories 25 years ago, but after months of Israeli bombings, much of Gaza's water and sanitation systems have been destroyed. Constant displacement orders have also left families struggling to find toilets and to stay clean. This week, enough polio vaccine for 640,000 children under 10 years old made it through checkpoints and into Gaza. UN agencies say within days, workers will try to implement a mass vaccination program amid deplorable conditions.
We need around 95% of children to be covered in 2 courses of the vaccine for it to be effective and for it to be a success.
With the war uprooting humanitarian workers too, the fear is if the vaccination program can't stop polio in Gaza, the disease could spread to Israel and beyond.
Polio does not respect borders, and it really can, as a quite contagious virus, spread to communities that have lower immunization rates.
Gaza's children are already enduring malnutrition and other ailments such as skin diseases, diarrhea, and hepatitis. And now Abdulrahman's mother says the family has to suffer with the stigma that polio brings. The neighbors are scared to come to hold Abdul, to be near him, to mingle with our kids. Even I, as his mother, was scared to hold him at first. Abdulrahman's outlook is uncertain. Sometimes the paralysis is permanent, other times not. His family hopes he might be allowed to leave Gaza for treatment. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
The Israeli military says it has rescued a hostage taken by Hamas.
During a complex rescue mission, Qaid Farhan al-Qadi from the Bedouin community of Rat, who was kidnapped from Israel by Hamas terrorists during their massacre on October 7th, has been rescued. He is alive. He is back home in Israel.
The military says the man was rescued by Israeli special forces from a tunnel in southern Gaza more than 10 months after he was abducted. Israel's government has seen unrelenting pressure throughout the war with Hamas to do more to bring the hostages home. The rescue leaves 108 Israeli and foreign hostages still in Gaza. Around a third are known to have died. The fate of the others is unknown.
U.S. Special Counsel Jack Smith filed a new indictment today against Donald Trump over his efforts to undo the 2020 presidential election. Smith's indictment keeps the same criminal charges but narrows the allegations against Trump. It follows a Supreme Court opinion last month that conferred broad immunity on former presidents. The reworked indictment removes a section that dealt with Trump's interactions with the Justice Department. The court said Trump was absolutely immune from prosecution in that area of conduct. The special counsel's office says the stripped-down criminal case was issued by a Washington grand jury that had not previously heard evidence in the case. Most experts agree that Canada, just like other parts of the world, is in the midst of a summer wave of COVID-19, which has many wondering if it's a good time to get a booster shot now or wait for a more updated vaccine rolling out in the fall. Lauren Pelly reports.
From Olympic athletes to average Canadians, plenty of people have been struck by COVID this summer.
If the science center is closed, where is
Toronto artist Leela Hewack doesn't want to be one of them.
I'm a person who wants to be vaccinated and protected against COVID at all times.
She's hoping to get another dose as soon as possible and doesn't want to pass an infection on to her aging parents.
I don't feel good about waiting.
Health Canada told CBC News it's still reviewing new vaccines from several drug makers. We are aiming to complete the review process by early autumn, a spokesperson said.
The most common question by far and away is, should I get my COVID vaccine now?
This Toronto doctor is encouraging her patients to wait for those updated shots.
Wait for that better matched vaccine, because chances are it's going to reduce hospitalization.
American regulators already approved new COVID shots for the fall from both Pfizer and Moderna. They target one of the latest subvariants circulating this year.
Even though the vaccines may not be perfectly matched to the variants that are circulation, for high-risk people, it still probably makes sense to get vaccinated.
COVID, it continues to be a more dangerous virus than flu.
And it's evolving faster than flu too, U.S. health officials said last week.
But we have some underlying protection because of prior infection, because of past immunizations. And so the severity of illness has decreased.
Still, many experts recommend getting another dose this fall if it's been more than 6 months since your last infection or vaccine.
All the data we've ever had for COVID shows that time since last vaccination is the most important thing in predicting if someone's going to get seriously ill or not.
Certain groups also remain at a higher risk of severe disease, including people who are immunocompromised, pregnant, or dealing with underlying health conditions, and any older adults age 60 and up. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Health officials in the U.S. are reporting the deaths of 2 people from a rare virus. It's spread by mosquitoes and usually affects horses, but it can spread to humans. One person has died in New Hampshire, along with a man in Massachusetts. Allison Northcott reports.
Several towns in Massachusetts are now critical risk zones for a serious mosquito-borne illness.
I don't know if I wouldn't go out. I'd probably just wear long pants and long sleeves.
Communities across the U.S. state are trying to prevent the spread of Eastern equine encephalitis after a rare case was reported in a man in his 80s.
Headache, a fever, but because of the inflammation of the brain, you can have a decreased level of consciousness and seizures.
Infectious disease specialists say it can be dangerous and deadly.
It's a pretty catastrophic infection. It can cause a very, very severe syndrome of encephalitis, which means inflammation of the brain, and it carries a rather high mortality rate.
Officials in Massachusetts are spraying widely, some towns closing parks and fields and urging residents to avoid outdoor activities during peak mosquito hours from dusk until dawn.
Please don't do this to our kids.
800 people signed a petition. Health Canada says the last reported human case of the disease in this country was in 2016. But health officials in the city of Ottawa say a horse there recently tested positive. So they're encouraging residents to use insect repellent, wear light-colored long pants and long sleeves, make sure windows and doors have screens, and remove or empty standing water sites around your home. The virus has no cure or vaccine for humans, but Canadians shouldn't panic, says this expert.
Outbreaks of this particular disease in the United States and in New England, it's usually only very small handfuls of cases.
Canada's public health agency monitors mosquito-borne diseases, but it says unlike West Nile virus, human cases of Eastern equine encephalitis don't have to be reported to the agency, and there's no formal surveillance system in place. Allison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
First it was self-checkout, now self-bagging has become a growing trend in Canada's grocery stores. It seems both the stores and the customers are contributing to the change. Sophia Harris has the details.
Cashiers at this small grocery chain do the bagging, even when customers bring their own bags.
We're a very traditional grocery store. We scan everything for the customer, we bag it, we take it out to their car.
But at many grocery stores, there now appears to be an expectation customers bag their own goods, even in the cashier lane.
Did you guys pack your own groceries today?
Yes, we did. That's the norm now.
It became the norm over the past several years, following government regulations banning plastic bags, prompting shoppers to bring their own.
So once we have our own bags, I think the idea is just to pack it ourselves.
But some shoppers aren't happy with the shift. There are dozens of complaints on social media questioning why cashiers at major grocery stores like Loblaws, Sobeys, and Walmart aren't automatically packing customers' goods.
They just expect you to do it.
How do you feel about that?
Well, it's ridiculous. Like, what am I getting 5% off? Am I getting anything?
Sophia Berdusis worked as a Loblaws cashier during the plastic bag era, so she bagged everyone's groceries.
It used to be part of the grocery experience, and now I feel like it's just one more thing that they're taking away. You know, they're raising prices, we're getting less.
Sobeys told CBC News its bagging services depend on the store, region, and staffing. Walmart and Loblaws say their cashiers are happy to help with the bagging. But some experts say cashier lineups do move faster when customers do their own bagging, which means grocers can hire less staff.
I think we're being trained not to expect bagging, and we've sort of fallen into that trap. Largely, I think this is a labor-based initiative. The real incentive is to get you through as quickly as possible so that we can serve the next customer.
So if you want your groceries bagged, choose a store that automatically offers it, or buck the trend by asking for help. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Toronto.
Team Canada has announced its flag bearers for tomorrow's opening ceremony of the Paris Paralympic Games. Champion swimmer Katarina Roxon, who's competing in her 5th Games, and her wheelchair basketball star Patrick Anderson, who's in his 6th and final Games, will lead Canada's parade of Paralympic athletes. Roxon has 1 Paralympic gold and 1 bronze. Anderson has 3 golds and 1 silver. The country's Paralympic team has 126 members. And we're back after this.
All right, as we were pointing out, we're getting along in the calendar in terms of the month of August. Really starting to slip away now, isn't it?
We have to savor every day, right?
Yeah, well, my next few days just involve back to school shopping, so really, I'm already into the mix on this one. I can't believe the summer is already. It's not done yet, but we're close. We're close. Pretty nice conditions, though, if you can get out this evening. We'll watch for fairly sunny conditions until that sun does set now, most areas before 8 p.m. So we are looking at those days getting shorter. About 3 minutes of daylight now being lost every 24 hours, by the way. Late this evening and overnight, we see some fog patches, maybe some drizzle, some mist for coastal areas setting up into tomorrow morning. Then those clouds begin to increase in the morning. Late into the morning, you'll start to see that rain moving towards Nova Scotia. Early afternoon for more western and northern areas, the raindrops start to push in, and then late afternoon and into the evening, that cold front continues to dig further east. It's a blustery southwest wind that sets up afternoon, evening ahead of the cold front, followed by a cool and still blustery north to northwesterly wind in its wake, although that does come with a ridge of high pressure. Cooler conditions for your Thursday, but we will be looking at that sunshine returning after some wet weather later in the day tomorrow. So starting out with a mix of sun and cloud, but some fog patches possible for the HRM. That wind already picking up through the morning hours from the southwest, gusting near 30. Could see gusts over 40 for coastal areas as we look to the noon hour. I will optimistically put breaks of sunshine in for the HRM for early afternoon. The wet weather arriving late afternoon, early evening, and you'll see those temperatures still around where they should be with that warmer southwesterly wind. It'll be 2 to 3 degrees cooler for a daytime high on Thursday, though, as that southwest wind will be coming from the northwest. Still breezy, but at least we'll have some sunshine returning for that sneak preview of fall on Thursday.
All right. Doesn't sound all that bad, actually.
No, it doesn't. We can have that.
Thanks so much, Jay.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Well, celebrating a birthday is usually a piece of cake for most people, but not Minette Bailey. This British woman decided to set herself a high goal for turning 102 years old. It meant jumping out of a plane from 7,000 feet to become Britain's oldest skydiver. And it's not just for the thrill of it.
Yeah, amazing. She's using the jump to raise money for charities that are dear to her. Bailey served with the Women's Royal Navy service during the Second World War. And she says despite having married a paratrooper, this was her first time skydiving.
Getting it done. That's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.